Hello, everybody. Whoops, my microphone's not there. Hello, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Colleen Pearl, the Cool Crone, and I'm here with my friend Gerald of TarotStache, and we're here to talk about Yule. So happy Yule, everybody. And
Hey,
we're going to just say hello. Hi, Gerald. How are you?
I am well, Colleen. How are you?
I'm doing much better, and I feel really good tonight. So I'm very excited to talk about Yule. And I hope I haven't even checked the comments. I'm such a bad host. Yep, nobody's here yet. Oh, 4 people are here yet. It says in the count. Okay, so thank you for coming, those of you who are here. And I think we're just going to jump in and start talking about Yule. Gerald is, as you all know, an overachiever, and he always comes prepared with a lot of stuff. So I'm just going to let him talk for a while. So, Gerald, go ahead and talk about Yule.
So, when we're thinking of the cycles of the year and the celebrations that a lot of Wiccans and pagans do, this is Yule, which, when we look at the wheel, here we go. And this is Yule. This is winter solstice or Yule. It is the long night. It is opposite of the long day, which is summer solstice, which happens in, opposite of that. And it's because everybody, I'm sure, has noticed the sunlight, like sun hasn't been hanging around as much. So I've missed it. I just said to Colleen backstage, I have really been noticing the sun and how it's going to bed early and getting up late. So traditionally, Yule or the winter solstice is like December 20th, 21st, or 22nd. And this is one of those things that a lot of this is tradition in Celtic or Norse cultures when we have some of the traditions that show up around it. And so winter solstice is when we move from we're losing the sun to the sun is going to start returning. And this is that period of time when we were an agricultural society, we would be indoors, first of all, because it's cold. All of us are in the house. We're around the fire. We're telling stories. We're sharing our traditions. The children are being taught. We're mending the things and fixing the things that we couldn't because we were so busy outside during the summer. So this is that time of the year when we pause and we get quiet, because I don't know about you, but I've noticed it's really quiet outside when it's dark.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to pause there. And anything you want to jump in with that?
Well, it's really quiet when it's winter time too, even in the daylight. It just feels, especially once it snows,
Yes.
that blanket of snow just kind of muffles everything and it just becomes very, very, very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually love this time of year. I really enjoy the period of kind of retreat, where you can pull back from the world, be indoors, do a little knitting, do a little, indoor activities, whatever it is that you do, but more solitary activities, not always solitary activities, but I do a lot of solitary activities
Yes.
in the winter.
Yes.
And I really appreciate that. It gives me time to kind of recharge and plan for the coming year and assess what's gone on for the rest of the year that's come before. Um, yeah, I really like this time of year. I really appreciate this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not the beauty of summer, but it is a different kind of beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can appreciate that, that's, I think, also very helpful to just appreciating the change in seasons. But
I
definitely going within is really important in the winter. You were going to say?
Well, I read recently where someone has called Yule, it's the seed time of the year, when
Yes.
everything we have the seeds and we're tending to them and making sure that we can plant them in the spring when it's warm enough to do that.
Hmm.
So it's a beautiful transition. And in some of the in some cultures there's this idea that this is the time that the goddess becomes the great mother and gives birth to the new sun king,
Yeah.
because the sun is starting to show up a little bit longer.
Hmm.
But boy, there's so many traditions and holidays and celebrations that happen at this time of the year.
Hmm.
I mean, I didn't look it up, but I think it's like 25, 27 different celebrations in many cultures.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah. There's so many different celebrations. So you were talking about how, oh, and Oil Painter just said, yes, the deep resting of the seed as the end of the Holly King and the start of the Oak
yep.
King season. Yeah, that's so true. Um, and in a lot of cultures, they just witness the change of light to dark, and how much darkness there is, and how
Hmm.
little lightness there is, or how little daylight and sunlight there is. Um, so I have a book by Dorothy Morrison, who's one of my favorite witches. And she wrote the book for the Llewellyn people about Yule. So, they have a series, they have a book
Yes.
for every Sabbath. And she wrote the one about Yule. And one of the things that she gives as the kind of history of this, and you have to understand, people, this is not, being Wiccan doesn't mean that you have this long storied history that goes back over time. There may be some sort of lineage that has survived since the days of King Solomon, but very few people, I think, can trace themselves back to that.
Hmm.
I think very few witch lineages also could trace themselves back to that, but there probably are some. I think I do know one, actually.
Hmm.
But the traditions of the holiday, whether it's called Yule or solstice or Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever it's called, you can trace the origins of people celebrating this kind of celebration at this time of year actually back to the Egyptians,
Mm.
of course.
Yeah.
Everything goes back to the Egyptians.
Hmm.
And so they had a very extravagant holiday at this time of year to celebrate the rebirth, not just the birth, but the rebirth of Horus,
Hmm.
the god who appeared in the sky as a fiery orb each day, and that was the sun, right? Now we think of Horus as the hawk or the bird, but and that Ra was the sun, but in really ancient Egyptian, it was Horus. They celebrated Horus as the sun that came back every day, the orb in the sky. And because they honored Horus with a 12-month calendar, they used a palm frond with 12 fingers on it to
Uh-huh.
represent the 12 months. So if you could find one that actually had 12 fingers on it, that was thought to be very, very lucky. And the word's escaping me. Anyway, very lucky.
Fortuitous.
No, more than fortuitous. And
Okay.
yeah, it'll come to me.
Okay.
Anyway, so that was very, very important to have those palm fronds in the 12. So if they found one with 13, they'd just pluck one off. But the Egyptians really flourished with their holidays, and the other um, communities, countries, nations around them noticed how successful they were as a people, and they wanted some of that mojo. So they started imitating their holidays. And let's see, kind of swept through Mesopotamia. The Babylonians took it up, and they called their holiday Zagmuk and incorporated their creator sun god Marduk. And a lot of people have heard of Marduk. So all over. There was stuff. Now the spin that they put on it. So the Egyptians basically were just saying, we worship the sun and we're so glad that the sun is coming back. A lot like we are today. The
Yes.
Babylonians put their spin on it and said, well, Marduk created the world and made it a world of order and beauty and peace. But before they came to that order, beauty, and peace, they had to fight a battle and defeat the monsters of chaos. So
Oh,
it's the
okay.
Babylonians. It's the Babylonians' fault that we have duality. Okay. So so it's their thing. And so each year everything would go along splendidly in Babylonia until the cool weather brought the winter, and that brought the monsters. And so then Marduk would have to go and fight the monsters in the whatever holiday, I guess, that they called Zagmuk. And that holiday also lasted for 12 days. So our little theme of 12 carries
Mhm.
on. And it was the job of the people to cheer Marduk and keep his spirits up while he did this very wearying battle. And then the Zagmuk festival actually began 5 days before the winter solstice, because they also celebrated the solstice. That's why they centered their holiday around the solstice. So there was 5 days before the solstice and the 6 days after, which of course the peak of it was the solstice itself. And on the seventh day, the sun stayed in the sky longer, and that was the sign that Marduk was on his way to victory.
Sure.
And so this was, lauded, celebrated, all these things. And this began this kind of um, partying thing, begat the exchange of presents because people were
Mhm.
so excited. And so they gave presents to each other. And the world was renewed for another year. So after that, the Persians caught on, and they also wanted to help Marduk, although I don't think Marduk was their god. They called their festival, I'm not sure, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, Sasea, and their festival was a little different and involved a temporary state of chaos. So the um, Persians were the first ones that had the slaves and masters change places, which is something we know that the
Oh,
Romans picked up on, because you know how Romans, any excuse to get with a little boy, and there they go. Anyway, um, so also the Persians were the ones that said, so all grudges and debts have to be forgotten during Sasea. Very nice. So this
yes.
brotherhood and love and, forgiveness, that all started there. Very nice. And a big party. And let's see, what else do we have here? And as the sun's light grew stronger, and they don't give the timing of Sasea, but I would think it was probably about the same days and period of time as the Babylonians. Babylonians, yeah, Babylonians. Um, as the lights of the sun grew stronger, the party got bigger. And during the last few days, things would kind of wind down. They'd have to, because you'd start to run out of wine and
Yes.
food, and you'd be tired, and nobody wanted to clean up anymore. So, of course, it would just kind of naturally wind down.
Mhm.
And at the end of the festival, it was declared that order had been restored in the Greek world. So, there we go. Very nice. I know. We went from Persia to Greece just like that, and it was all kind of, and with the way she wrote this, it's just kind of like, oops, I think she kind of blended everything and didn't quite
Yes.
separate it. Anyway, on and on and on. Then we come to Zeus, who defeated Kronos and the Titans. And then we have Kali Kansaroi, the mischievous imps, who are similar to the ones that had to be defeated by Marduk. They roamed the land, wreaking havoc during the festival. They used to steal the spirits of unsuspecting children. And of course, the Greeks did their best to keep them at bay. New babies were wrapped in garlic bundles, and because the monsters supposedly couldn't tolerate fire and smoke, each family kept a large log burning for the duration of the festival. So that also begat our Yule log.
Hmm.
And they would put in old clothes and food and spoiled food, old shoes, clothes, anything that might burn and be offensive to the intruders. And then finally, we come to the Romans, and they were practicing Mithraism, And they also wanted to participate in these winter festivities, and they combined all of those traditions of the rest of Mesopotamia, and then they added a few of their own. Um, First, they would exchange the god figures, Jupiter for Zeus, Saturn for Kronos, and this gave them an opportunity to worship Saturn. And Saturn is not a very friendly god. So this
Mhm.
was really important for the Romans because they they revered Saturn, but Saturn wasn't a party guy at all. So having this festival of bringing peace and restoring things and overriding the monsters, all that stuff, that made them feel like they had paid their homage to Saturn in an appropriate way. Whereas I
Yeah,
guess they felt
yeah,
guilty. So I guess they invented, Catholic and Jewish guilt at the same time. And then
I love
and I mean, she goes on and on, and but basically that's the gist of kind of the little history of it. And so you can see how by the time Christianity came around, it was a no-brainer that they were going to have a holiday
yes,
at the winter solstice. It was just a no-brainer. And we don't have to get into the whole Christian thing, how they, stole all their myths and, created a birthday for Jesus that had nothing to do with his real birthday.
right.
But anyway, so the the celebrations at this time of year had most to do with the sun returning. They
Yes.
also had a lot to do with charity and helping and putting down the
Mhm.
chaos and being peaceful. And I think all of those traditions then from the Romans, of course, mainly because of the Roman Empire, but then later, the bump into the Celtic Empire, these all blended throughout Europe and Scandinavia, and it just proliferated all the way through the world. You didn't have the internet in those days, but if someone had traveled at all, or what if someone had traveled to another town and then married into somebody in that town, they
Sure.
would bring their traditions with them. And that's
Yes.
how all of these traditions sort of melded together till we have something that's akin to the more modern Christmas.
Mhm.
And, of course, thank you, America, for inventing, this big fat Santa Claus that lived at the North Pole. That's a totally
Yes.
American convention. And stealing the symbology of Odin, who was the king of the elves. And then they made the elves little and Santa big. So, they,
Mhm.
they did that. I don't, because, in the night before Christmas, they describe him as a jolly old elf, and he's not human size. He's small. He's elf size.
Mhm.
So very interesting that the way all of these things move, it has a lot to do with culture. It has a lot to do with just, what do humans want to do at the time of, being indoors and being in the dark, and what are we reaching for? And
Yes.
also children. I think children are a big part of this. And even for adults, that childlike wonder that you have at Christmas and Yule is really a sign of the hopefulness of the sun returning, because the sun is life. And without the sun, you don't have life. So, yeah, you might love that your kid wants a, new iPhone or something like that. But the real thing here is that you want them safe, no monsters. You
Yes.
you you want the sun to come back so you can all be warm and
Mhm.
live and have food, and you want to be together and at peace. So all of these things all across millennia have proliferated around this holiday. So
Right.
it's a big deal.
Well, and this again is one of the fire festivals.
Yes.
Unlike the counterpart of the summer solstice, this tends to be more private because it's cold outside.
Hmm.
So that fire is in your home, and it is a really it's really about keeping your family safe and your children safe, like you said, Colleen, because we're moving into the darkest part of the year,
Yes.
and it gets really cold in January and February. So this is the darker part of the year. So there is a balance, and I think I like how it's it tends to be more private, solitary, or family unit oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think, and one of the key things for me is, we have this, well, both of us are wearing red,
Mm-hmm.
and red is a great color for this time of the year, as are candles and lights, because
Mm-hmm.
we're hoping to see the light. We want to have that connection to the light, to the sun, for whatever reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of fun. So that's one of the things to keep in mind is while you are lighting candles. Yeah, well, Advent, I grew up Catholic, so we had Advent wreaths that had candles, Yule logs. I'm going to pause for a second, talk about a Yule log. A Yule log is it, in my tradition, it's actually from the Beltane, um, yeah, what do you call that?
Maypole.
The maypole, thank you. It's part of that maypole, and what happens is there's places for candles in that Yule log, and so you light those candles as a way of connecting and encouraging the sun to return.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, and what we've done is, in our tradition, one is a white candle, one is a green candle, and one is a red candle.
Yeah.
So, and so that's a big celebration with that too, because um, it's important to have that connection, but also a Yule log is a really incredible dessert. Bouche de Noel, right? I mean, so, but that's some,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, so there's always a reason to celebrate, and the holly wreaths and the evergreens that we often decorate with. Those, like holly is, it's good luck, it's protection, it's dreams. That's why you'll oftentimes see people putting holly in on their jacket or in a hat. And mistletoe. We've all heard about mistletoe. Those of you who are
Mm-hmm.
watching, have you heard about mistletoe? Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and again, protection, love, and fertility. It's all, and so there's a lot of bringing everybody along and encouraging us to get through, and to survive the winter, because
Now, speaking of holly, did you know that the Brits have a tradition about holly where there are the thorny-leaved holly, which are considered male, and the smooth-leaved holly, which are considered female. And in British households, the variety that is first brought into the house during the holidays determines which gender shall head the household during the next year.
really,
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah. 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 When I first started reading that, I was like, oh, like which gender is going to be the next baby born? No, which is going to run the house. It's like, okay, that's cool. And remember, too, this whole thing with evergreens, that also started, whoops, I'm moving my camera. That also started with the Egyptians, where they didn't have, and in all of Mesopotamia, they didn't have evergreen trees. But whatever trees that they had palm trees, and that's why they were using the palm fronds. But even that tradition proliferated up through all of Europe and Scandinavia into just trees, evergreen trees. Like I think the Scandinavians and the Germanic tribes really are the ones that really said, no, it's got to be evergreen trees. That's what it is about Yule.
Yeah.
Because that's what they had. You know?
Well, sure, sure. And I think, that again, there's so many different, I actually really like this time of the year because of the overlap and the interweaving. It's fascinating to me.
Mhm.
Of course, it all starts with the Egyptians, duh. And
Everything does.
isn't it? I find it really interesting that um, the energy around the celebrations weave through and they connect. Everybody puts a different spin on it, because on a Christmas tree, there's a star at the top of that Christmas tree, because it's cold, it's dark, and we have these twinkling lights in the sky. So I think this is one of those things. Get curious about what the traditions are. That's the other thing in my coven. The traditions that you did as a family growing up are really an important part of our celebration. We have an opportunity we're encouraged to bring a food that was a traditional food for our family, and we share that with our coven mates. So there's this, it's the storytelling. It's the, here's what we've done, and the creating of new traditions. So I think it's great.
Yeah.
Love that.
I think that those star symbolism, I think that is, all the stars in the sky that you can see on those very dark wintry nights. I think that is why we light the candles. I think the candle has a connection to the star. I think the star has a connection to the sun. And I think it all goes back to the Egyptians.
Yes. Yes.
Because it is really about the sun, but the stars are they're little suns, and they, when you have a bunch of candles, whether it's in a wreath or I mean, we don't put candles on trees anymore because it's such a fire hazard, but we put twinkling lights on the trees that represent the candles, and it all means the same thing, that we are hopeful that the light and heat will come back to us, and that we will survive another winter.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think, the gift giving, as you were saying, it's the celebration, and we've made it. That's also a thing to remember, is we're getting in, we still have some food, but it's not the really fresh stuff. So being able to share what you have is an important thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And that builds that community.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, this book, she has so many interesting things in this book. And then from there, she goes around and lists all these different celebrations that are at this time of year, although she doesn't list that many really around the world. She just has Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and Yule, and I know there's a bunch of other ones. I'm surprised that she didn't have more, but then she has holiday customs around the world, and she goes by country and tells us all sorts of things. It's just amazing, all the things. But also the thing that is amazing is how much similarity there is, and how so many cultures have borrowed from other cultures in their mythology, which I love that. That's what really, excites me. So,
yes.
And the food, you could just go bananas. I mean, I remember when I first found out that people that I knew in New York had lasagna for Christmas. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. My Christmas was a ham and some kind of, like, probably scallop potatoes.
Yes.
Sometimes we might have a turkey, we might have a big, like a prime rib, or we might have a couple of those, we might have a ham and a prime rib. I mean, it just, very meat heavy, which I don't even eat meat anymore, so that was weird. But and then all sorts of side dishes, candied this and frothed that and scalloped this, and and then, of course, the proverbial and always present red and green Jell-O with a layer of cream cheese in the middle so that you get your white.
Wow.
And they actually had us eat that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but then lots of Christmas cookies too, so those were good.
Yeah. Well, and Christmas cookies oftentimes were hung on the tree because they were there, and cookies would last a bit. So
Mhm.
there's that too.
Sugar is a preservative. Yes, this is true.
Yes. Oh, I should live for a long time then.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Very long time. And my mom was, I don't know where she came up with these, but she found these really fabulous cookie cutters that were very detailed. They weren't just the outlines of a cookie. They had like they were like little sculptures when you made them. They you had to really press the dough into the cookie cutter. So they had to be prepped
Mm.
just the right way. Like they had kind of like a little texture to them. They weren't smooth plastic, so the dough wouldn't completely stick to them, but then you had to flour them just the right way. And when you got done, you would have, for instance, for Santa's hat, you would have or Santa himself, you would have a hat that had a very distinct, raised area of the front part of the hat, and then the little tail of it, and then the brim would be raised, and his little eyes would be in here, and then his cheeks would be raised. You could see his really round cheeks
Hmm.
and everything, and his
Wow.
little lips. And they had very detailed instructions of what you could use, like, coconut on the hat, coconut for the beard, little cut raisins for the eyes, little pink food coloring for his cheeks. I mean, it was like a makeup tutorial. And I think my sister still has these. And when you made those cookies, they were a work of art. So
Yes.
those are the ones that we made to hang on the tree. But those suckers were heavy. You had to have like a hefty tree to, to
Yeah.
hold
Oh,
those
I would
cookies
think so.
up. And they tasted good too. But that was, man, for years we made those cookies, and it was just like, who's making the cookies? It was a team effort. You had to have like 5 women in the kitchen to make these cookies right,
Oh,
because
sure.
it was it's such a detailed job. You'd get tired by the time you did a dozen cookies, and we needed, between our families, we needed like, 6 dozen cookies. So,
Hmm.
you know,
Oh,
but
yeah.
the cookie thing. And then, you have all your different kinds of round cookies that again represent the sun. Even if they're chocolate, they represent the sun. That round shape is indicative of a planet or a sun. So you have
Yes.
to have that too.
I was just looking at my notes from November 18th of 2015
Mhm.
of this, and there are lots of celebrations this time of the year. It's a time for planning, for storytelling, and acquiring new knowledge.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on the holiday. And this is where, if we, when we move from Samhain, where we've honored our ancestors, we've celebrated that. This is where we take that information and we meditate on it, and we consider what's coming in the new year,
Mhm.
because that's the third harvest. We can also consider what went very well in the last year, what needs to be different.
Mhm.
And so I think it's a really interesting thing, because not only are the seasons changing, the calendar changes as well. So this
Mhm.
is a significant time that people, New Year's resolutions,
Yes.
they do all of these different things. So, and,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah. It's not, having been done with the harvest for the first month or so after Samhain, we're eating pretty good, right? We've
yes.
got everything canned, we've got everything preserved, all the meat is salted. You're eating pretty good for that
Hmm.
first month or so. And so it's just about the time of winter solstice when you start to go, "Oh, did we run out of that?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. I loved that jelly." What,
Yep.
like
Yeah.
you start
Yeah.
to notice that is not as much as there was, and you start to think about lack. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We've got a few more weeks of this. So,
And there's so many different symbols that are around: the wreath, the holly, pine cones,
mhm,
candles. I would encourage everybody in this time of reflection, if you're spending time with at a gathering, look around and notice what the symbols are that are part of that gathering. Whether that gathering be pagan based, anything like that. Just just notice, because I think there's an opportunity for us to go, huh, okay, this is an opportunity to see what has come along. One of the things that I always mention, Colleen, is what colors are associated with this time of the year. And all of the colors are around. Notice, however, notice what is in nature. This is where we have deep hues. They're super saturated. That's where we have that really dark green, that really dark brown, the really dark red.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an interesting thing to consider, because what are you noticing? We're noticing white
Mm-hmm.
because we have the snow. We're noticing contrast because that snow on those bare trees
Mm-hmm.
really has a significant impact
Mm-hmm.
around us. So,
Yeah. And the sun is at a different angle. And
yes.
when the sun hits that snow, you get all sorts of different shades of blue, which is really interesting in winter. It gives that cast of blue, which is so chilly and cold.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well,
Mm.
and I think, and I I blame you for this, but or no, excuse me, I give you credit for this, but I think I may have I have a you, you know because I'm always looking at colors, and I'm also looking at intention and my magic.
Mhm.
So if I'm burning candles around the holiday and I have family and friends coming over, I might encourage you to consider, instead of burning a red candle, burn a burgundy candle,
Mm.
because red is about passion, but it
Mhm.
can also be anger. So if it's a burgundy candle, it has a bit of grounding to it. So it can be, if you pay attention to that, it can be more about respect, and it's a grounded atmosphere. Still very, very appropriate for the season.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's just an opportunity to a nuance. What might you do?
Yeah. Yeah.
What might you do?
Yeah, I do remember my mother using that burgundy color quite a bit around Christmas time. I
Mhm.
think she also had a burgundy robe. My mother favored those kind of fleece robes with a zipper that went all the way up
Uh-huh.
because
Yes.
they were warm. But I remember her going through several burgundy robes of that
Mhm.
style.
Yeah.
And I always remember at Christmas time, there she was in that burgundy robe. Never red. I don't think she felt like she looked good in red, so she went to the burgundy. But
So, but
so
well, and
Cleo,
I and
Cleo,
yeah.
am I telling tales? Is that okay? All right. Oh.
I do think, this is, if this is the time of the year for acquiring new knowledge, it's because we're spending time indoors and we're not going outside a whole lot. It's a great time to, I'm encouraging everybody to explore that which you don't understand or what you don't know about. Get curious about it, because it will really inform your world and put it into a bigger perspective.
Mhm.
Somebody had mentioned, we were talking about St. Nicholas or Santa Claus. Where does that come from? And you were describing the jolly old elf
Mhm.
and how it's
Odin,
different.
Odin and his elves, that's what it
Yeah.
is. And they just took the characters and morphed them into, really, it was an American creation. And they just took, Odin, made him a little taller, left the elves elf size, and they popped him into the North Pole. They created the whole thing about the toy shop, and it was all a creation of American consumerism and capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
So, not a bad thing, but it was not a part of any kind of religious outreach. Although you might say that because America is so capitalistic, maybe that is part of our religion.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that is part of our spiritual commonality, the desire to have plenty, to be prosperous, also to be at peace, which is something that the Babylonians would relate to as well. But
Mm-hmm.
the desire to create this. mythology, I think that's strong in everybody. I mean, look at what look at what the Persians did, and look at what who was that who first the Babylonians who first adopted the Egyptian ways. They took their mythology and just painted it over all of the traditions and things that the Egyptians had already been doing. I just think
Mhm.
that's so interesting. I mean, I think that's what Raymond Buckland did with Wicca, and
Yes.
then trying to bring it to the United States. They just painted it all over with Americana, and there you go. Then you have your
Yes.
square dancing or whatever that comes out of that, because that's what it came out of.
Mhm.
Square dancing was not something that everybody did. That was invented by a bunch of people who wanted to have that, you know, they wanted their symbolism in a celebration, and this was a way that they could do it, and they wouldn't be outed as, breaking the law or anything like that. And they could still socialize with one another.
Mhm.
So very interesting how they adopt. We just appropriate whatever um, cultural traditions we like and just
Mhm.
use it. We just use it.
Yeah. Well, and I think we have people who know me know that one of my favorite stories is A Christmas Carol.
Oh
Uh,
yes, me
Charles
too.
Dickens. Charles
Yeah.
Dickens. It's a ghost story, people.
Yes,
Um,
it
and
is.
it's very appropriate for this time of the year because when we're spending time inside, the one who knows how to read and doesn't have to be cooking or mending or caring for a child reads to the others. And
Mhm.
think about that this lesson of understanding and introspection is just like going, wow, is this how I want to be in the new year? Is
Yeah.
this what I want to be like? So I
Yeah.
think that's it's something to consider, everybody. So,
Yeah. There's a couple of little tidbits in here about different Americana Christmas traditions. And so the story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was written
mhm.
specifically as a sales gimmick for the Montgomery Ward Company in 1939 by one of their employees, Robert L. May. The little book was given freely to every customer who shopped there during the holiday season. And boy, did that take off.
Yep, yep.
And candy canes, which also have that red and white coloring like a maypole. You would have
Hmm.
thought that a good old pagan created that, right? But the candy cane first gained popularity in churches where churches, believe it or not, where it was given as a treat to children who behaved themselves during services.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean,
Okay.
that was very interesting. And let's see. Um 2 years after World War II ended, the people of Oslo, Norway, sent a holiday tree to the city of Westminster in appreciation of British support. This tradition continues today.
Mm,
Isn't that cool?
that is
Oh.
cool. That
And
is
I
cool.
l and I love this one. I see Sherry's in the chat, and this is, comes from down by her. Along the shores of the Mississippi River, especially along the Louisiana coastline, bonfires are lit on Christmas Eve. Their purpose is to guide the way for Father Christmas.
Mm,
It's very cool.
yeah.
That reminds me of a lot of Hindu traditions where they light the path, like they'll put little lamps, little burning clay candles, clay pot candles along like their driveway to lead people
Hmm.
to their house. It's to lead their ancestors to them, or they'll paint footsteps going to their house. For same thing. Not for this time of year though. It's more in the fall, more like around Samhain time. Oh, here we go. The custom of Santa eating cookies on Christmas Eve originated in Germany, where trees were decorated with fruit, flowers, and sweet confections. After leaving gifts for good children, he'd simply help himself to the goodies on the tree.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this, it's hard not to veer into Christmas stuff because the the
It's so
again,
prevalent.
American capitalism borrowed so heavily from the Yule and pagan traditions.
Mhm.
Just so much, they just so much. But anyway, so yeah. So you guys are having Yule on Saturday?
We are. We are.
Do you know what kind of ritual they're going to do? What they're going to focus on or
Well, I know we will be doing something. This is something that Jeffrey came up with last year. There'll be a wassail
Oh,
spell,
nice. Oh.
wassail working, where everyone is able to put something in and there's meaning around that. So it's really very
Mhm.
powerful.
Mhm.
And this really is one of those where we will, it's about celebration.
Yeah.
But then it's also about being, what is it that we need to let go of as we enter this time of the year so that we can enter the new year without those burdens.
Yeah.
So,
And there is a where's my little ephemeris thing? There is a new moon on December 30th, I think.
so yes, it's the second new moon. So it's a black moon, which is the
Yeah.
counter to the blue moon.
Yeah, and I think for this year it's especially interesting that we're having two Capricorn new moons. That's just wild.
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn's my rising sign. We need all those new moons in Capricorn. We need all that. I think I kind of blew off the first new moon this month, so I have to pay attention to. Yeah, December 30th at 5:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, new moon of Capricorn. Yep.
And new moons are really great for workings of things that you want to draw into your life,
Mhm.
because from a new moon we wax, which means we gain to a full moon. So it's
Mm.
the setting intentions of what you would like to bring in. So
Yeah. And it's not the second Capricorn new moon. I'm wrong. The first new moon in December on December 1st was in Sag. No wonder I blew it off. That's my house of
yeah,
forgetting things.
okay.
Did you know that astrology had a house for forgetting things?
I
It does.
didn't, but I
It
like that.
it does. No, so this will be in my first house, 9 degrees of Capricorn, training my moon. Ooh, gotta pay attention. That's gonna be a good moon for me.
Mm,
Yay. Maybe something wonderful will happen.
yeah,
I tell you, the astrology this last 3 months of the year has really I think almost all year, actually, I'm thinking back to like the eclipses and everything. I think all year the astrology that has been the big strokes this year has really hit my chart a lot.
yeah.
This has been a year for me,
This
big
is
year. And I think
yeah,
2025 is going to be an even bigger one because a
yeah.
lot of things are hitting key points in my chart. So I got to pay
Mm,
attention, Gerald. I can't be fiddling around with this nonsense. I
yeah,
have to pay
just
attention.
you're done with it. So when are you celebrating Yule?
So we're doing Saturday, and I don't know if all of you are aware, but in my coven, we have had our high priestess is suffering from a pretty significant health issue, and she won't be with us at Yule. And so the person who is we're a teaching coven. And so everybody that comes into the coven takes their training, and part of their training after a certain point, then we set you loose and you start doing rituals, and it rotates. So you don't do like every ritual all in a row. You'll do one ritual, and then maybe 3 or 4 months later you'll do another ritual, or maybe like 5 months later. So over the course of a couple of years, you'll get all of the rituals under your belt.
Mhm.
And the woman who is doing Yule has two new babies. her
Wow.
her oldest, I think, is 2 years old, and maybe he's almost three. I'm not sure. And then she has another baby that was born in 2024. Yay! So she's doing Yule, and she's done several rituals. So it's not like
Hmm.
she doesn't know the basics of everything to do, but it's just kind of hard to do it without your high priestess. So
Yes.
that's going to be interesting. And the woman who would be the next behind her also has a very young child. So
Mm.
she is unable, and family obligations. She is unable to come. So it's me and another woman. We came into the coven at the same time, so we're kind of the same level. So we will be helping her and supporting her.
Wow.
And so it's going to be different. But
Mhm.
this person who is doing Yule, She is a very creative witch. She makes a lot of things. She makes her own oils and lotions, and she's very crafty. She does a lot of very, very creative stuff. She's very
Uh-huh.
artistic. She paints and everything. So I have a feeling it's still going to be really fun. And we are going to be treated to her Yule bedtime story,
Very nice.
which is her own story that she
Ooh,
tells her kids. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
She's got such nice energy because she is so very, very creative. So
Hmm.
Jen, if you're watching this, shout out to you. Jen also has a channel. I don't know how active she is on her channel with her two little babies, but her channel is uh Lipstick Legion Craft.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jen,
We
hi, thinking of you.
we will be we do exchange gifts, and these are handmade gifts, small
Oh,
trinkets or small things.
oh, you guys are
And
so brave. Okay.
so yes, so we will be, and I have knit a bunch of headgear, hats,
Nice.
and ear muffs for people. So we will see how those go over.
Yeah, nice. Oh, that's very, very nice. We also do a gift exchange, but we don't require that you make them because we can't.
Yeah, and this is, and boy, I've gotten some really amazing gifts. So, and it's just something small and intentional. So, but one of the I think is it Iceland or Finland? One of their traditions is that you give on Christmas Eve. You give people a book. You give people a book, and you spend Christmas Eve reading the book.
Oh, wow. Wow. I had a friend that every year he would read King Lear out loud with his father every year on Christmas Eve.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I think he still reads it out loud. He's an actor, so of course he would do it out
Hmm.
loud. But
Yeah.
I tried doing that one year and I fell asleep. So I'm
So
but so do we want to do a little card pull for everybody and give them a little Yule inspiration?
I would love to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Those of you in the chat who are listening and putting in your comments. I've been looking at them. I'm sorry I'm not responding to a lot of them, but it's really nice to have your energy here. And I'm really happy that you're enjoying our conversation. So,
Hmm. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Um, so I'm using the Wildwood Tarot, and one of
mhm.
the things that I'm looking at with this is because um, there's an interesting aspect of it. Is I have what I got for us is the Ace of Arrows. And when we look at this, the Eighth of Arrows, it's the breath of life.
Oh,
So this is an opportunity for us to put our thoughts into action and make our intention into a physical reality. So there's this, which is part of what we were talking about. How are we using this time of the year to get clarity? And the Ace of Arrows is a great, it's definitely clarity, but it's also a do a small thing, do a small thing, and lots of small things add up.
oh, I love that.
Hmm.
Oh, that's
Yes.
great. All right. So, what do I have here? Well, I don't know how much that has to do with Yule, but I'll use it and then I'll pull something else. Oh, and two want to come. Okay. Sorry. I got three cards. Okay. All right. So, the first thing that came out for everybody, and I guess we should all take this to heart, is past life activation.
Mm.
So if you're sitting in the dark and thinking, why are my thoughts going towards that dress my grandmother used to wear or whatever? Well, she's probably with you, but also she's informing you about something about a past life. So there's some past life stuff rolling around for some reason for
Mm-hmm.
people. And maybe that is that at this time of year, also, when we come into Capricorn on the 21st, when the sun moves into Capricorn, that is what defines the winter solstice. And when the sun goes into Capricorn, it's ruled by Saturn. Saturn is time, Saturn is maturity. But also for me, Saturn really represents repeated lives, the things that we learn from life to life
Mm-hmm.
to life to life to life, because it concerns itself with karma. So if you are at all wondering about your past lives, this would be an excellent time to spend moments meditating and seeing if you can come up with some ideas about what might have gone on in past lives.
Ah.
And shameless plug, if you need a little help with that, contact me. I do past life regressions. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not hard to do. We can get you through 3 or 4 past lives easily. But
Wow.
and it's helpful to do. It helps you clear things out. It helps you clear blocks. It can tune you into potential reasons for health issues. It can help you tune into potential reasons for problems within relationships or just within the relationship with yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
past life delving or mining is a really, really good thing to do. Okay, so another card that I got, well, I'll save that one for last because that seems to fit for last. Master Hilarion and Archangel Raphael.
Oh, okay.
So I know that Raphael is healing, but let me see what she says about these other guys. This is Alana Fairchild's Lightworkers Oracle, and her stuff is so deep. It's very hard to just pull out a card and sort of know what it's about, because
Mm-hmm.
her stuff is so deep. I won't read everything that she wrote here, but um, I'll just read this first little paragraph. Okay, so, and I need my glasses. God, I'm getting old. God, I'm getting old. Ugh. Oh, God, how can you guys stand me? Okay. Part of your divine purpose is to develop the power of your mind and use it for healing purposes. If you change your mind, you can change your world. Guidance and healing inspiration can come to you daily, helping improve your own life and the lives of others. Healing and opening the mind to new realities and possibilities are the gifts of Ascended Master Hilarion and Archangel Raphael.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's a good Yule thing too. And then the
Yeah.
last card I have here, and now that I read that thing, I'm definitely going to have to read about this one, is this is so great for Yule. Cosmic Heart, Cosmic Christ.
Uh, hmm.
The sun coming out of his chest is just magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all about the sun, which is life giving, life affirming, hopeful, getting through the darkness, getting you to the other side, getting you to the next lifetime, even, So it all kind of goes together. But let me just see what her little blip is about this. You are elevating your vibration towards the frequency of limitless supply and unconditional love. Spiritually, you are reaching for a high level of attainment. Past pain and self defeating behaviors shall no longer have a place in your heart.
Ooh, nice.
Powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that clearing. Saturn time of year is a great time for clearing, but it also makes you really look at the truth. It will not allow you to gloss over anything. It will not allow you um, to sort of pretend, like in the case of forgiveness. If you're just sort of pretending like you're forgiving somebody, Saturn won't let you do that.
Yeah.
Saturn will create another event so that you are face to face with what it is that you needed to forgive and
Yeah.
cannot forgive, so that you have opportunities to learn how to gradually forgive, because forgiveness sometimes can't happen all in a blink, right? Because you have to adjust. You have this psychological adjustment that you have to go through so that you can freely give up the hate, the hurt, the blocks, the burdens that are causing you to need to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that forgiveness and truly do the forgiveness, it frees you. It lightens your burden. It
Yes.
lets you move on in your life in a much more profound way. But until you really can do it sincerely, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna work. So that's Saturn. And so this time of year, if you can really be honest with yourself and go through these things sincerely for whatever it is, connecting to a past life or your Christ consciousness or forgiving someone, you must do it sincerely and deeply and completely. And then you really open things up for yourself for the new year.
Yeah, I love that. Especially, I mean, this is that's like the perfect card for Yule. I mean, and the fact that you were also talking about past lives, a lot of times this time of the year is associated with shadow work, dark goddesses, and past lives right up there with it.
Right up
Yes.
there with it. Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah. So, you'll and rituals for me are always multi-layered. There's always, the kind of muggle level where it's just what are the colors and what is the symbolism and that kind of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
then there's the slightly deeper level where the symbolism connects to your deities or
Yes.
whatever. And then there's the higher level where what is your relationship with the deities and why are you doing this ritual now? Why are you participating in this? How does it make you feel? And where is it taking you? What is it teaching you?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I always feel that when I work with my deities, it is such an intense personal relationship. It's
Yes.
it's such a different kind of relationship than anything I have with humans. That it is sacred and it's
Mm-hmm.
very important. And I almost don't want to share it with the rest of the coven, but I do.
Right. Yes. Well, because there's an intimacy about that,
Yes.
and keeping
Yeah.
it like that is so very important.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. So I think we've kind of covered Yule, Gerald.
this has been wonderful. I hope people have benefited from it, and I think enjoying this time of the year, create some new awareness, and be willing to spend some quiet time. Unplug,
Hmm. Hmm.
unplug. Read each other's story.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like with my family, I read their cards for them.
I
Every
like
single
that.
every single person, I give them a reading. Christmas. That's my role.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
So.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you everybody for joining us in the
Mhm.
chat. And I really appreciate all of your thoughts and energy. And Gerald, thank you so much. We almost didn't make it. This was kind of tricky for us to
Yeah,
schedule.
it was like, oh, how are we going to do this? Yeah.
Yeah, we almost missed it. So I'm really glad. And I know we're going into our second year of doing these Sabbaths, but we always
Mhm.
have something good to talk about. So I think
Yes.
we're going to continue.
Yes. I hope so.
All right, so I'm going to bring up my music and then we will say so long. So, everybody, have a really cool Yule and
Yeah.
whatever else you celebrate. Have
Hmm.
a really great whatever that is. And we will see you for the next Sabbath
Yep.
just before the beginning of February.
Yep. Bye.
Bye, everybody.